Some people move through life like gravity itself, unstoppable, inevitable. They don't wait for motivation. They don't wait for the right moment. They move, regardless of mood, weather, or circumstance. You've seen them. The ones who execute without hesitation. While others talk about goals, they become their goals. The truth is, motivation is a lie we tell ourselves to avoid discipline. It's emotion disguised as purpose, and emotions, they shift with the wind. In ancient Rome, they had a word for what we've forgotten. They didn't worship motivation. They built empires on gravitas, the weight of character, the seriousness of purpose, the calm inevitability of action. Gravitas was not about feeling ready. It was about being worthy of your own promises. Today, you'll discover how to stop chasing emotional sparks and start living like those who became legends. You'll see how the Romans mastered the one thing modern culture has forgotten, the axiom of inevitability, that when duty replaces desire, action becomes automatic. But first, let me tell you about the man who knew everything and did nothing.
The year is 50 BC. His name was Decimus, the perfect Roman noble, educated, polished, articulate. He studied under philosophers who quoted Socrates and generals who followed Caesar. He could recite tactics, analyze strategy, and debate honor for hours. And yet, he never set foot in the arena. Every dawn, he swore, "Today, I begin." 20-mile march, 500 spear thrusts, the dream to become a centurion. But then came excuses dressed as logic. A new book arrived from Athens, a pain in his shoulder, a question in his mind. Shouldn't I perfect the theory before the practice? The sun would rise and Decimus would retreat back to study. Day after day, scroll after scroll, the soldiers began to laugh. Here comes Decimus, the strategist of books. He had the knowledge of a general and the discipline of a boy. Then came the day of reckoning. His father, a battle-worn legate with scars like medals, visited him. He saw his son surrounded by scrolls, his sword still shining from disuse. "Son," he said, "you have the mind of a general and the heart of a coward. Your knowledge is a blade you have never drawn. You are a ghost pretending to live." Decimus was shattered. He realized all his studying, all his learning had not made him strong, it had made him guilty. He had the complete map, but never took the first step.
That's when his life changed, because one night, while wandering near the training grounds, he met a man who would destroy everything he thought he knew about discipline. Decimus found Aelius, a centurion, feared not for his rage, but for his stillness. He was not loud, not boastful. He was inevitable. Aelius rose every day before the sun, trained alone, and executed the same routine for 20 years. Not for applause, not for motivation, for gravitas. Decimus begged, "Teach me your discipline." Aelius looked at his soft hands and smirked. "Show up tomorrow before the sunrise. If you don't, you are one more man with a promise." The next morning, the sky was black and heavy. But Decimus came. Aelius handed him a scutum, a heavy Roman shield. "Hold it," he said. Don't drop it until I say stop. Minutes passed. Sweat poured. Decimus's legs trembled. His shoulders screamed. 5 minutes in, the pain broke him. He dropped the shield, gasping. Aelius didn't yell. He simply said, 15 minutes. That's how long a Germanic charge lasts. You failed because you listened to your feelings. Humiliated, Decimus swore, I'll be back tomorrow. Aelius turned his back. Why? Why will you return? Your shame will fade. Your anger will pass. Those are feelings, voluntas. Decimus stood silent. Then Aelius turned, eyes burning. You return tomorrow because it is your gravitas, your duty to the man you swore to become. Motivation dies in the wind. Gravitas remains in the storm. Decimus changed. He stopped asking, how do I feel? And started asking, who am I becoming? He began to show up, not as a student, but as a soldier. Every strike, every breath, every failure was no longer personal, it was ritual. He was not training his body, he was sculpting inevitability. And that's the first truth of gravitas. You don't act when you feel ready, you act because readiness is irrelevant.
Here lies the core of the axiom. Discipline isn't about doing hard things, it's about being someone for whom those things are non-negotiable. Decimus had been trapped in an illusion, the belief that identity follows action. But the truth is inverted. Action flows from identity. He wasn't failing because he lacked time or tools. He failed because he saw himself as a scholar who wanted to train, not a centurion who studied. The difference? Everything. The scholar negotiates. I'm tired. I deserve a break. The centurion doesn't negotiate. I train because that's who I am. The question doesn't even exist. This is the identity shift that ends procrastination forever. When you act from voluntas, desire, you're driven by dopamine. When you act from gravitas, duty, you're powered by conviction. And here's the brutal truth. Every time you break your promise, you're not failing a habit, you're betraying your identity. Every skipped workout, every delayed project is a small act of self-betrayal. You're killing the person you declared you would become. Gravitas is resurrection, the daily death of your weaker self and the rebirth of the one who executes. Remember, I want to be X is negotiation. I am X is inevitability. Motivation says, I'll try. Gravitas says, I am. And once you declare that identity, the world and your mind start to reorganize around it. You no longer need inspiration to move forward. You move because stillness feels like betrayal.
You don't need a legion to live this. You need the 5 axioms of gravitas, the laws that turn thought into motion. Axiom 1, the Axiom of Declaration. Stop promising what you'll do. Start declaring who you are. Don't say, I'll start my business. Say, I am a builder. I build. Identity before action. That's how inevitability begins. Axiom 2, the Axiom of Inevitability. Duty is non-negotiable. When you set your routine, you are setting the law of your life. You don't ask the sun to rise. You don't ask your body whether it feels like moving. You act because you are the kind of person who acts. Your routine becomes your gravity, and gravity never argues. Axiom 3, the Axiom of Consequence. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. Every time you skip the small pain, you invite the crushing one. You're not escaping cost, you're delaying it. And interest compounds. Gravitas is choosing the smaller pain now to avoid the unbearable one later. Axiom 4. The Axiom of Completeness. Knowledge without action is a corpse. You can study wealth, health, success, but without gravitas, it remains theory. Rome wasn't built by thinkers. It was built by doers who also thought. Gravitas turns knowledge into motion, and motion into wisdom. Axiom 5. The Axiom of Strategic Rest. Gravitas is not fanaticism. Even the strongest soldier rests, but never to escape. There are two kinds of rest: the coward's rest, which hides from effort, and the warrior's rest, which restores strength to strike again. When you rest, ask, is this recovery or retreat? The intent makes all the difference. Decimus trained until his body became his teacher. He no longer needed permission from his emotions. He had become inevitable. And so can you. You don't need motivation. You need gravitas. You need the unshakable identity of someone who does what must be done, not because it feels right, but because it is right. You don't need to feel inspired. You need to become inevitable. Because when gravitas lives in you, discipline stops feeling like effort. It becomes oxygen. And those who breathe discipline no longer chase greatness, they embody it. If this message struck something in you, don't subscribe for motivation. Subscribe for mastery. Welcome to the Axiom State.